Imagine being told that your life is going to change forever. That every meal, every workout, and every moment of your day needs to be carefully planned and monitored. For about 15 years, I've lived with type 1 diabetes, and I'm here to tell you that while it's tough, it's also manageable. And more importantly, I think it's worth fighting for. Whether you're newly diagnosed, supporting a loved one, or just looking to understand like what this condition is about and, be better with those that are, type 1 or type 2 diabetics. And if that sounds like something you want to do, this video is for you. So let's talk about the realities, the challenges, and the tools to thrive with specifically type 1, but also I think with type 2 as well. These are the things that most doctors won't even prepare you for unless they're type 1s as well. So first, let me share my own diagnosis story. So for those of you who are watching that are maybe newly diagnosed, you won't feel so alone. So I was losing about 1 pound a day, or maybe every 2 or 3 days, but I was drinking tons of water, always feeling dehydrated, and eating so much food that it would like make most people feel sick. We're talking like 5,000, 6,000 calories, and yet I was shedding all this weight, right? So this was at a time when I was actually on a road trip in California. At least this is when like the symptoms started to really ramp up. I remember sitting there one night because I was losing all this weight, and I'm like, I need to eat something. I need to do something, right? And like ate like a whole tub of ice cream, and then I felt like crap for the rest of like the whole trip. And on the way back, we literally had to stop every 20 minutes for me to pee. When we got back in town, right, back to home, which we're in Salt Lake, we went into a clinic by my house, and the doctor basically said, well, it looks like you have type 1 diabetes. like legit, it was like painfully awful in terms of how he communicated it, especially to a kid. So he handed me all the supplies and sent me off, right? And it was all a big shock for quite some time. I had no idea what was happening since I was only 15 years old. And when I was first diagnosed, I was super overwhelmed with it all. I was told there was like, a honeymoon phase and I had to start injecting myself, which is basically self-harm to keep myself alive. Super weird concept. And that if I took too much insulin, it would kill me very quickly, and too little will just kill me slowly and I'll feel like crap. So that was fun. And they also told me that maybe you should think about a pump, but I was nowhere near ready to attach something to my body when it was also new. Hell, I don't want a tube thing attached to me. I'm sure you don't either, especially if you're newly diagnosed. I felt so alienated. Most people, in fact, I'd say like no one really noticed what I was going through, but I knew, and I stopped being like my cheery self for a while and felt very, very alone. Luckily I had support and knew a couple of diabetics. One, my buddy Austin, and later in life I met another friend, and we could like kind of talk about, our struggles and things like that. And then later came my first endocrine appointment with a lady that ended up being my doctor for about 3 years. She told me something on the first day that I'll never forget, and that was, you can still eat whatever you want, but you just have to take insulin for it. That was crazy. Not at first, but like that was crazy later, and now it sounds like absurd. Knowing that, this is a chronic disease, I was sort of shocked and also relieved hearing that. Maybe that's what she meant by it. But later on, like I said, I realized that this is like the worst advice you can give to someone. But like, I get it. Like, she wasn't a type 1 diabetic, so she didn't get it. Basically signaling, don't change anything except learn how to take insulin. Eventually, because of that, I stopped going to her because I felt like she was just repeating the same thing over and over. And also that first mentality never really vibed with me. Like, she would always say like, you should count your carbs. Okay. You should exercise more. Okay. You need to take insulin before you eat. Okay. Like, now what, right? There was nothing really in the book for me that I wasn't doing. So I decided to do it on my own. Cooking my own food. I stopped seeing endocrine. I started just going to like a regular doctor to get my meds and taking care of my blood sugars, sort of without like doctor insight. I even attempted to get off insulin a couple times, which I recommend to not do. Like one time I did like a 72-hour fast, and I got off insulin for about 48 hours during the fast, and then a little bit after. But it almost killed me, and I think that will be saved for another story. But if you want to learn more about that, let me know. I'll maybe make a video on it. But basically, I hated this disease. And looking back, I probably hated myself in some sort of way after getting diagnosed. Like, how could I be so stupid? And like feelings of like, I'm the only one that feels this way. Just know that if you feel any of those things, you're not alone. okay? And I know it's hard, I know it's painful, and at the end of the day, like, the most you can do is do your best and do you. If you're in the honeymoon phase, there might be a chance you can reverse it. So I don't wanna like let your hopes down, because I think there's something about taking the actual insulin that makes you more diabetic than you should be, or, you know, basically stops the production of insulin or the transportation of insulin in your endocrine system. But that's, again, for another video, and I think that there's something there, and I'm sure we're gonna see that soon in the next 10-20 years. I'm sure there's gonna be some kind of like, you know, beta cell transfer, or like rebooting your pancreas. But anyway, going back, the doctor I have now, I love, and I highly suggest finding a doctor you love. He's also a type 1 diabetic, and he gets it, you know. I am now constantly under a 7 A1C, just had a 6.3 A1C, which was awesome. My other hormones are stable and in a healthy range, and I feel better than I ever have since getting diagnosed. Sure, I still have the disease, but I'm way more understanding of what it is, and I have learned a ton of what to do and what not to do. So let's get into like why I finally got a pump and why you should consider one, all the other nitty and gritty things about this disease. And yes, you know, all of this is from someone that hated the idea of having something attached to them, and even injecting insulin. I had the hardest time with pricking my fingers, all that. So remember that learning to inject insulin, count carbs, and monitor blood sugar wasn't just like a physical adjustment. It was a super emotional and mental one. And I'd say one of the hardest parts was the idea of having something attached to me, like a pump or a continuous glucose monitor, which is a CGM. It felt like losing control of my body. And if you're feeling this way, it's totally okay to grieve and talk to someone about it. Give yourself time to process it. Remember that these tools are here to help, but they don't define you. Okay? And if someone judges you for having one, it says so much more about them than it does about you. Okay? Over time, I realized these devices could actually help me live a more balanced and normal, quote unquote normal, life. And to be honest, outside of the absolute headache it is to get it prescribed to me and pick it up at the pharmacy and fighting with my insurance on like a thing that literally keeps me alive when, you know, when I need them. When I actually wear them, I forget they're there. Unless I bump into a wall or something, then I feel it. But my Dexcom and wireless pump became my lifelines. They've given me some of my freedom back, and not having to inject or prick my fingers is a blessing. And if you're resistant to using a pump or CGM, try it for a week or two, and the convenience and stability might actually surprise you. And there are tons of options. For me, I love my Dexcom and Omnipod, and they connect to my phone, which is also super nice, so I don't have to carry around a bunch of devices, you know, phone, and then also my monitoring device. But I urge you to try one. Worst case, you can go back on the pens at any time. And so now, one of the biggest changes with type 1 diabetes is going to be your relationship with food, especially with like people at events and food. That one was a weird one. I had to let go of the idea of eating whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. It was a personal choice, but overall, it's going to help you, especially on the foods that don't inflame your body and don't spike your blood sugar. And instead of indulging in sugary treats, I've learned to appreciate the natural sweetness of fruits in moderation and embrace a more health-conscious lifestyle. But when I go to events, it's still hard. People often like offer me sweets, and don't get me wrong, I want them in the moment, but after enough battles for the next 24, 48 hours with my sugars because I had like a slice of cake or pizza, it just wasn't worth it. And this is something that takes a long time to learn and realize and adjust to, especially if you have a sweet tooth like I do, and you know, you go to family events and there's just like a bunch of food around. Most people, they won't get it. Just don't let it get to you. It's not personal, and they just don't understand what that will do to your body versus theirs. And you know, things are happening inside their body and they probably don't feel good, but because they're a lot of times accustomed to these foods, they feel numb to those adverse effects. And we feel them not just for the day, but for like 1 day, 2 days, sometimes 3 days, sometimes a week. It can even make you sick because it's, you know, it's basically inflamming your whole body, your whole nervous system. So just know that, and you know, it's okay. And maybe even show them this video, and maybe that will help them understand what it's like to you know, eat these foods even in small quantities. And so over the years, I've also seen two common outcomes among type 1 diabetics. Some believe it doesn't matter what you eat as long as you take enough insulin, right? Just like my doctor said. Others become incredibly health conscious, and at the end of the day, it's up to you, right? You could choose either path. To me, I see this as like, one, you can still enjoy everything, but you will likely live a shorter and maybe even more painful life especially in your later years. And option two, which is like the more health conscious option, you will live a healthier and happier life, but you won't have as many sugary sweets. And it's up to you to decide, but I would encourage you and your family and friends to help push you to the second option. I know it's hard. Food addiction is also a real thing, especially to sugar, but you got this. And yes, you can have sugar. I'm not saying just don't eat sugar, but always plan for it and correct with insulin appropriately. Long-term high blood sugars can lead to complications. So with a heavy heart, I urge you to be a healthier version of yourself. Even if it's just one step at a time, I want every type 1 to live a longer and happier life. Just because there's not an established cure doesn't mean you don't deserve a long and healthy life. Now, this section, I'm gonna talk about managing low blood sugars. It can feel very scary, and I've had moments where I've passed out and had moments of near passing out. So I want to share that and just help you better be prepared for low blood sugar moments, because they will happen, right? No matter how good you are at managing your blood sugar. And these low blood sugar or hypoglycemia moments is like one of the scariest parts of type 1 diabetes. It can happen unexpectedly in a blink of an eye, but with the right preparation, you got this. You can handle it. For me, I get symptoms of shakiness, brain fog, slurring my thoughts and words, and then eventually seeing white and then going limp and passing out. But everyone will have different symptoms. Just know this is happening because there's not enough sugar going to your brain. But there are a few things you can do to prepare for times like this. Obviously, carry something quick acting like glucose tablets, honey sticks, or sugar packs. You could bring fruit. I love fruit. You can bring juice. I also love juice. Anything, the healthier the better, right? You also want to educate the people around you. So if you're unconscious or getting close to, they should place sugar under your tongue and around your mouth, right? Like basically as close to the brain as possible, but also you need to be able to digest it, and maybe call 911. But talk to them about how you want them to handle this, right? My buddy has a tattoo that he's a type 1 diabetic. Some people wear bracelets. Some people wear necklaces in case you go by yourself somewhere. I set it on my Apple Watch, but never ever give someone insulin for a low blood sugar. That could literally kill them if you don't know that already. And then, there's also gonna be bad days and good days, right? Diabetes, unfortunately, isn't like a straight line. There are bad days, weeks even, where it feels like nothing works, especially common when your body's fighting off a cold or the flu. Highs that just won't come down, lows that keep you up all night. It's also normal, and maybe fortunately, but just know it's normal. What matters is that you don't give up. You're fighting to stay alive, and that's a battle worth fighting. If you ever need someone to talk about it, there's counselors, other type 1 diabetics, and if you just want to talk to someone in like the comments, diabetes or, the struggles of diabetes, feel free. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are gonna be watching this over the years, hopefully, that are gonna be supportive and helpful. I think community is like so important with this disease. And I've only come to realize that just about a year ago. And we all know how hard it is some days. So just remember, you got this. You're strong. You've already, if you're an experienced diabetic, you've already done this much. So what's another 50 years or whatever? Anyway, so another challenge is your skin. I have acne, as you can tell. I also get wounds on me from using my pumps, or if you have sensors, also pricking your finger. I used to have insane calloused and painful marks on my fingers. Kind of embarrassing, to be honest, but again, it's something that you just work through mentally. And when you use these pumps and sensors, make sure to rotate sites. Even pricking your finger, rotate where you prick, which fingers you prick. Definitely don't use the same needles, and same thing with injections. It will literally start leaving metal deposits in your skin, and that is very bad for you in the long term, not just for your skin health, but your actual body, because that's going to get processed in a way. So this is the next thing that I want to talk about, that's so important, and that is to have a routine. And if you're not a person that likes routine, create little tiny routines that kind of mimic a routine as best you can. The reason being is because living with type 1 diabetes is always easier when you have a routine. Consistent meal times, regular exercise, scheduled blood sugar checks can help create stability. And you can predict much better when you're getting sick or what's affecting your sugar levels when you go off of your routine for a meal or a day. Also, drinking can impact your blood sugars, so always be careful with this. Some drinks will lower your sugar levels, for me, a vodka drink will lower my blood sugar, and some will obviously raise them. So just experiment to learn about your body. Remember that like if you feel really bad after a couple drinks, it could be a sign that other parts of your endocrine system, your liver, your kidneys need to be checked, since the liver plays a big role when filtering out toxins, and kidneys help with all of that. So I'd say, best ways to avoid all of this is just like don't drink. I know that sounds kind of like crappy advice, but really that's like the best way. And the other thing I think that really helps us diabetics, or just like everyone, is like set goals. Goals keep you focused and it will help you feel better for longer. For me, it's hitting below 6% A1C, and the best I've ever had was about a 6.2 since being diagnosed, and I'm so determined to beat it, but also maintain like my body weight and like my routines. So it's really just about managing my blood sugars, because I'm right there. I believe goals like this, or any other goals in life, like in the gym or even at work, give you a sense of purpose and progress even on the hard days, right? So set some diabetic goal that's attainable and push to achieve it, and then keep doing that. And with type 1 diabetes, it doesn't mean you can't live your life. You can travel, go hiking, skiing, rowing, doing things you enjoyed before. The key is preparation. Always carry sugar, pack your supplies, stay aware of your levels, and you'll be just fine. I know it feels like, oh, I can't do these things anymore. It's gonna be much harder until you get used to it. Trust me when I say this, you don't want to not do the things that make you happy, bring you joy because of this disease. It's already hard enough as it is, and not foregoing new adventures makes it so much harder. Don't be afraid to make friends, and don't be afraid to talk to people who aren't type 1 diabetic. It doesn't mean you just need to have type 1 diabetic friends. Have friends of all types and walks of life. Everyone has different struggles. And speaking of struggles, diabetes isn't just physical. It's also a mental battle, and the constant vigilance can take a toll, right? Talking to others, especially fellow type 1 diabetics, does help. Sharing your experiences and hearing their stories, and makes the journey feel less isolating. At least it does for me. And a pro tip, if you can join in-person or online support groups, online forums, Reddit, or even social media communities like this one, for advice and encouragement. There's a ton of people living with this disease and other diseases like it, and it helps to not feel so alone, especially when you have no one that's type 1 or even type 2 around you. Try to remember that living with type 1 diabetes is a challenge. It's a good reminder, but don't think of it as like the impossible challenge. It's also an opportunity to become stronger, more disciplined, more compassionate with yourself, and tolerant of others. Create systems, set goals, and remember that every day you fight this battle, you're winning, especially on those hard days. And if you're newly diagnosed or supporting someone with type 1, share your story or ask a question in the comments. I'm more than happy to share any findings or little hacks or tricks and things that have helped me physically and emotionally with having type 1. There's a ton of stuff. So rather than like trying to put it all in this giant video, let me know in the comments what you'd like to see a video on next, and let's learn and grow together. If you want to see more health general videos as well, let me know. More than happy to make it. And also, small plug, if you want an awesome read about my journey and also just like all the things that I think are important in the space of health, check out this book. I'm actually doing a version 2 of this, adding like another 100 pages on how to live longer, things like that really speak to me. And I think to a lot of other people, like how to live a better life, how to live a longer life. But even this book, I think, is filled with gems that I think so many people need, especially in this day and age. Definitely check it out. It's on Amazon. I think it's like 20 bucks if you want, a cool new read this year, next year. And don't forget to subscribe, as always. And thank you all so much for watching. Peace.